Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Mohit Dhawan. I head the engineering team and the cloud operations team at Komprise. And with me, we have Mike Peercy, who is our CTO and co-founder and brains behind a lot of the things that we'll be talking about today. And I'm really excited. I think someone mentioned that this group loves demo. So, I'll be doing that part and would love to have any, questions, conversations that you have about the demo itself. So with that, let's quickly talk about, continuation with what Kumar was saying, right? Where there is a big challenge of managing this data, right? And this kind of picture gives you a good view of what we are saying, right? Where imagine your data being scattered around your on-premises data stores that you have, your Isilons and NetApps and Windows file server. You may have some data sitting in, multiple clouds like AWS and Azure and Google Cloud, or you might be considering building your own private cloud, right, with a lot of object stores out there. And that's exactly what we are seeing out there with a lot of our customers, right? They don't have a single strategy or a single storage solution they're using. They're multi-vendor. They're agnostic of protocols. They might be NFS, SMB, S3, and they really need a solution which kind of gives them a single pane of glass to be able to find, search. So it's like a virtual data lake which has all your metadata about any unstructured data, right? Which, as Kumar mentioned, right, it's about all your files, whether it's application generated or user generated, right? So you can really see that analysis, and then based upon that analysis, right within the same view and same product, you can make the right decisions about the data as well as if where the data should land, how should I access the data, right from the console as well, with the scalability of the technology that we have. That really Mike will talk about, that how we have built up that product with keeping that mind that, hey, today it's billions of files and petabytes of data. It's going to get to zettabytes of data and trillions of files. So how the solution that customers are going to invest in today will work for the future as well, looking at the growth of the data that we are seeing. So in this section, we'll talk about, we'll do two demos really, right? Two use cases out of the three that Kumar talked about, right? One is really, I want to lift and shift my, my workload to cloud. I want to move all my data associated with that to one of the cloud NAS solutions out there, like Azure Files or AWS EFS, AWS FSx. And I want to move my data there, but I want to do it quickly. I want to do it seamlessly. I want to do it with very less manual intervention, so my storage team can spend time on more strategic things rather than babysitting the data migration workflow. And the second piece is really, hey, I might not be ready to move my entire workload, but I want to be able to start getting ready for the cloud. I want to identify some data I want to know first, and I want to identify some cold data, and I want to move it to cloud. However, I don't want to get locked into any of the storage technologies or cloud technologies. I want to be free. I want to be vendor free. I want to have no lock-ins and still able to achieve the same, right? So that's really what we'll talk about. We'll go on the architecture, and then we'll go and jump right in the demo as well after that. So some key things to keep in mind as we're talking about this whole solution, right? The way Komprise is built up with this few fundamental things that we had in mind. We want to be no agents, no stubbing. I think some of you might be familiar or not. Stubbing is a very old technology where it kind of had a lot of issues as you start scaling, right? So we were looking at billions and billions of files. So we want to have a solution with no agents, solution that does not come in the way of the data, right? The application and users should be able to natively access the data they want. And really no scaling limits, right? That was very key for us because we were really dealing with a huge scale challenge, right? Where you have billions and billions of files and petabytes of data, and while maintaining a very seamless access for users and application, right? And I'll show you all of this in demo, but I just want to put some points out there that you guys kind of look for as we are talking about the architecture and the demo itself. And again, right, while doing that, not able to create any silos, right? Where you are really, if you are in your AWS environment, you can only see AWS stuff. I don't know where my Azure data is or where my on-prem data is, and you have to go to different consoles or different views to be able to get that perspective of all your data. But within Komprise, really you can see every single thing out there using our virtual metadata lake. That's our deep analytics technology that we have out there. Now, with that, I will give it to Mike, who will kind of really jump into our architecture, right? So we can kind of really geek out here, and then go ahead and jump in the demo after that.
Thank you, Mohit, and good day and good evening to everybody. Good to talk to you. So to get into the Komprise architecture to start with, we'll just say it's a cloud-hosted service, and it starts, the cornerstone of it is the director services. So that's what the customers would interact with through the administrative console. So in this demo we're going to show you today, we're looking at a customer who is on-prem. They've got some on-prem data center, and they're looking at how can they get into the cloud, where can they get a cloud strategy from, and what tool can they use to help them get that. So here we show a cloud vendor, one of our many partners. We partner with pretty much all of them. And so the customer now says, how do I know what data I have, what data I want to move? Let's say what shares I want to move entirely to the cloud vendor, and what shares I might want to leave on-prem, but just send the cold stuff to the cloud vendor. So the first thing they do is they go to the director, and the director informs them how to set up observers in their data center. And these observers are the workhorses of Komprise. They are placed inside the data center, so they're inside the network and inside the security network, and able to talk file system protocols to the NASes. So through the director, administrators set up the filers they want to look at, the shares they want to look at, and then the observers start looking at that data and build out analysis and build out observations. And what do they do with the observations? Well, they build the pretty pictures that we see in the console, but they also fill up a metadata lake. And so you heard Kumar talking about this, that all of the data that we get to, all of the data that we see, we put in this metadata lake. And it goes across all of the storage, across all the across all of your data centers, your sites, the cloud vendors, all the different cloud vendors you have, and the observers index the data into that metadata lake, and then the director can query from that, and APIs as well can query from that. But then that gives you that deep analytics picture that we have. And going back to the observers, notice that there's several of them, and they build out into a grid. So whatever the scale of the storage problem you have at that site, the more observers you can add. They click together very easily, and they communicate very easily. And the observers work alongside the storage. They're there just to do the management that you want of the storage. They don't actually sit in front of the storage. They don't sit in front of your hot data path. They don't form another silo. So it's not like a gateway to the cloud. It's not like all your data from the NAS has to go into the observers or a gateway, and that's how it gets accessed. The hot data stays on the NAS and is not fronted by anything that Komprise offers. Only the cold data will be served by the observers and essentially fished out from wherever it is. And so we've got that there was no silos there, and there's a full scale out. And just to notice, on the right, that those are all Komprise cloud data services, and they full scale. We've got billions of files in that metadata lake, covering petabytes of data, and it's all visible through the director for each of the customers. And then the observers on-prem, because they're the ones that only touch the data. We don't put the data itself anywhere. It's just that the observers are moving the data where you want it and then fronting it as it needs to be fronted in order to do the transparency. And it's shown here, those green arrows, that the observers will do that migration, will do that transfer of the data for the two use cases in the demo that Mohit will now show you.
Hey, Mike, I have a quick question. There's a lot of inspection of our data going on here across a lot of different areas.
Mhm.
How granular is the security around the console, the access to querying that data? I mean, we're giving obviously a lot of leeway or a lot of attack surface here for someone to come in and understand our data.
The access to the data for a customer can only be through the director. No other application can get to this data lake. It has to go through the director. The director is managed with credential services or our own credential services, or can be run and authenticated through Active Directory. It's essentially that the director is the only one that can talk to that query engine and pull that data out.
Right. For the people who do have Active Directory access to the director, is there a way to give specific roles to folks so that they can have like least privilege access to do their job but not see all the data?
So one thing to keep that in mind before I can answer your question is we're not storing any data, right? So that's just, I think when we're saying this it's a metadata lake, right? So we're really storing indexing the attributes of a file, right? Hey, and I'll show you in the demo as well, hey, what kind of file it is, how big they are, who owns it, and all that information, right? So that's one key, right? That, hey, there's no data ever coming to Komprise service, right? It's only the metadata that kind of goes to this engine, that's a deep analytics metadata lake that allows you to search and find that needle in the haystack, right? That's the one important piece. From the security perspective, that still is important, right? Even though it's a metadata, you need to kind of protect it. And we have different layers of protection because this is a service that's running. We isolating at the customer level. We are protecting that only authenticated users have access to it, and we have different roles in the product that enables whether you have access to this or not, right? That you can have it, so that really you can control as an administrator who gets access to it versus not. So what you see here is, the Komprise Director, right? That's the service that we talked about. This is the console. This is the go-to place for you to really do anything with Komprise. And I'm starting with this page where I just wanted to walk you through what has been done already to get this at this point, where they have set up a couple of observers, right, to be able to, customers have installed in their data center. They have set it up, and it's within minutes they can really do that. It's very simple, all software solution, just a virtual appliances. They put it in their data center, and here you go, right? Once they do that, they have come here and they have really added a lot of their file servers, right? This is the data that the customer have in their data center. It's sitting today, right? It's on their Isilon, on their NetApp, and they have some cloud servers as well, like Azure Files and AWS, that they've started to kind of play with, but most of the data sitting in their data center today in all these file servers. And this is very easy to really add it, right? You can go ahead and add any new file servers. We support bunch of platforms out there. Very simple to add any. You can discover the volumes, discover the shares. Komprise will automatically go ahead and find every single export and share out there. And now we start to manage that data and give you the insights about the data that you never had before. Now, once you do that, I'll quickly show you some of the analytics that you get in the product. So here you come in, and this is where all the know stuff starts, right? Where we were talking about, you got to know before you can act on it. Now you can really start to see, hey, what kind of data do I have, right? So here you can see, hey, this is about 4.8 petabytes of data, about 55 million files have spread across all my storage, right? Not just single platform, no silos, all my storage, whether it's cloud or on-prem. I'm able to see that insights kind of right within the product. You can also see, hey, how much of the data I haven't accessed for more than 3 years or more than 2 to 3 years. It's sitting there, it's valuable, but may not be worth putting in my most expensive storage, right? So you get some insights about the data that you, again, never had before. Not only that, right, customers are able to get some more insights, right? But hey, what kind of data do I have? Do I have video files, a lot of archive, a lot of text or audio files? And even within all these categories of data, what is my access pattern looks like? Right? That's kind of very important, right? So all these colors where the blue is coldest and the red is degree of hot, right? That's a hot data. That means you have been frequently accessing it. You get all that insights based upon the file types, your file size. Do I have big files, small files? How many of them are there? What kind of storage am I taking using those files? Who owns that data, right? So, hey, do I need to go find, and I need to find a really pinpoint who is the owner of the data, and also the group, right? Either whether most of the data is owned by the research group or the marketing group or the engineering group. So I can go ahead and talk to them and have that conversation about it as well. Right? So it really gives you that insights very quickly. Within minutes, you're able to get this view of your data right out as you deploy the product. Now, once you have that insight, I think one of the use cases we talked about, one of the customer who is doing that as well, right? They're really looking to, there's a big media and entertainment company. They're always looking to move their, older, video files and older episodes. They want to move it to cloud, right, for the storage. They want to keep it on the NAS so that their users can access. So they've been moving data to AWS FSX in this case. And they really use this insight to be able to figure out, hey, where is my data that hasn't been accessed? The users are not accessing that much. I can migrate those shares first rather than doing this, wholesale, all of my Isilon kind of moves out. I will really find out, hey, I will kind of start migrating this data to FSX and have it available within AWS itself. If they really want to get to it, they can get it from AWS itself rather than coming it from Isilon. And we make that process very easy, right, from our migration part of the product. So here we can come ahead and the customer will say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and create a new migration job. This data is sitting in my Isilon. This is the one I want to migrate to Azure. In this case, it's Azure. I'll go ahead and select my destination in Azure Files. I'll go ahead, give it a name. And again, this process, anything you're seeing in the UI, the way it's been architected, is driven through API as well, right? So all of this can be done through REST APIs, and customers have integrated, using our APIs within their workflow of how they want to migrate, so that they can not just do one migration, but as Kumar, hundreds of migration at the same time by using our APIs itself. And the other key piece is, as we are migrating data, right, we want to make sure we maintain every single attribute of the data as it goes to the other side, right? So that the fidelity of the data, the fidelity of the metadata is kind of very important for the customer. So we maintain everything. We maintain all the ACLs. We maintain all the permissions. We even do the MD5 checksum of the data so that it's all everything is moving perfectly. And all while considering and doing it at scale, right? Where we have, what Mike showed, the grid of observers, which are really doing this elastic data migration, where all those workers are actively migrating data to the cloud, right? And that really gives us, up to 27x performance that we've seen at even customers' environment as compared to some of the open source products kind of out there. So as you go ahead, you go next, and you go and start the migration. So this will just go ahead and kick off another migration here. In this case, it's doing the first iteration, and it's now starting to kind of, copy the data, right? And let me show you one of the migrations that I started early on that has been kind of running for a while. It's 79th iteration now, right? Where you can easily see over time how long each iteration has been taking, right? This makes this process of moving the data very simple, right? So they can come in the console, they can see, okay, hey, my data is all migrated. It's kind of ready to be a cutover now. I can do my final iteration. I have no errors, right? Otherwise, I was talking to a customer really yesterday, and they were saying that, hey, generally we start a migration, first of all, using some of the open source tools, even going to the cloud. First of all, it'll take 3 days to finish. You come after the second day, and the job failed. And now it's errors, and oh my God, now I don't know what failed, how much was it done, where was it, how do I restart it? It's impossible. That this process makes it easier. If things go wrong, we recover. If there are errors, we point to them. We give you the exam files that have the errors, so you can go fix sometimes. Sometimes we can't do anything. Customers have to fix them, but we give them the visibility. So all that can be done right in the console as we are migrating data to the cloud.
Now, I have a quick question. Do you have the ability to use the intelligence to perform any kind of auto migrations and automate that process? Or is the intent here really that the intelligence is coming in to allow operators to look at the data and themselves make the decision to choose, hey, this needs to go here because of this attribute, so on and so forth?
Great question, right? So I think the use case that I talked today about right now I'm going to talk about other use case where things are a little bit more automated and how customers can achieve that, right? There's still element of your storage admin initiating the process, right? But after that, there are parts in the product where leveraging some of our analysis, you can put a plan in place where it's kind of constantly doing that and looking at the insights of what that plan should be. And there's some items coming in our roadmap that will make it much more intelligent, where based upon some of the tagging capabilities and in our deep analytics, which would enable you to do it much more automatic. Great. So this really makes the and that's really one of the things that we heard from customers, right? They really wanted a simple analytics-driven migration product, right? They make their process of migration very simple as they are moving their data to cloud and even workloads to cloud as well. So the second use case that I want to talk about is really for those customers where they're not completely lifting and shifting the entire data set. And they might be considering, hey, instead of going to a file-based, I want to consider moving to an object store, but my applications might not be ready to talk to the object store today, but might be in the future, right? So I want to get ready for the future. I want to start my journey of, hey, let me go ahead and start moving to the object store today while I'm working in the background to maybe modernize my applications, maybe move everything to the cloud, or keep in the hybrid way, because I think we see a lot of customers will maintain that hybrid view for a long period of time, but they want to start embracing the cloud and start moving more and more data to the cloud. And that's exactly what we are seeing. I think Kumar mentioned an example of the pharmaceutical company, right? They're really pushing forward of moving a lot of data to the public cloud, and they're doing it to the object store. And that's really the next use case that I'll talk about. And where their journey starts is from our deep analytics page, right? So this is where you have this virtual metadata lake that we kind of talked about, where you can come in, right? Here we are seeing a query that shows you all data, right? The same 4.84 petabytes and 55 million files. But let's say you really want to find, hey, only want to see my cold emails, right? So I want to see, hey, any email that the users have not touched for more than 3 years. And that's like 19 terabytes of data in this case. Not that much, but still have a view of, hey, what that looks like. Or I want to be able to see all the data owned by the engineering users, right? And now I want to go ahead and see, hey, can I see the data owned by engineering users that have not accessed data for more than 3 years? Right? So you can really dig deeper. You can filter by file types later on, really slice and dice the data the way you want. You can kind of keep that queries, right? You can really keep that query, save them the way you want, and come back later and take action on that data, really, right? So that gives you, again, key thing in mind is very scalable. We're able to handle billions and billions of files and index them and being able to present that very quickly. Being able to, again, no silos, where this is agnostic of your storage. So you're not looking at just your Isilon. You're not looking at just your NetApp. You're not looking just at your AWS. You're going across all your data that you have Komprise is managing. That kind of is completely, breaking that silos between the different storage platforms out there. So now once you have seen this, right, you have a view of the data, you can understand exactly, hey, okay, I'm ready to move my data, but I don't want to move everything. My applications are still accessing this data on my Isilon or on my NetApp, right? They're really, they're generating, we do access some of it, but a lot of the data, about 70% of the data, that's being not accessed for over a year. I want to take an action on that. Right, so here it's in the plan page. We have built this plan where we have added about 4 shares, and you can see exactly that about 1.5 petabytes of data exist. But based upon my plan, I want to move the data that has not been accessed over a year to my AWS bucket. So this is not a file share. I've added an AWS S3IA bucket where I want to move my data to. Right? And as you do that, Komprise gives you the information, okay, once you act on this plan, you are going to move about 60% of this data. So almost a petabyte of data you will move, that's planned to move. And not only that, based upon the cost that it takes for you to manage your data and the cost of managing the data in S3IA, you will see a savings of up to $6 million over the next 3 years. And this takes into consideration of customers' data, right? How much data do they have? Based upon the insights that we have gathered and analysis that we have gathered, what's the growth of their data looks like over the next 3 years? How much more data we will be moving in the next 3 years? They will be able to, have a savings of about $6 million over the next 3 years as they act on this data. And that's like a money page for the customers. They love that view in our product. The admins love it. They're able to share this with their CIOs, generate a PDF report out there, send it to it, and then kind of the product, really customers love that because of this. And once they move the data, how transparent and simple that is, and I'll show that as well next, that no, again, one of the points that I had in my slide, there is no impact to the users or application once we start moving this data to the bucket.
I have a question about the migration of data. And you mentioned earlier that you can move it faster than some other ways. I'm curious if it also helps with the quantity of data that's being moved, because we all know moving data out of the cloud is really expensive. So is this going to reduce the amount of data that's getting pulled down if you do have to restore something that you've archived?
So, I mean, it's a great question, right? And I think with this strategy of moving your cold data is the data that you haven't really accessed that much to begin with, right? And the probability of this getting accessed is very low, right? And especially that's what we have seen over the last few years that we've been customers have been using our product. And actually, one of the we did some analysis with one of the customer that over 1 year, I think they really accessed some of the data that they moved, and they moved petabytes of data. Like only about 16 or 30 files they really accessed over the 1 year period, right? Because again, right, this is not your hot data, as you said, right? Getting that data out of the cloud, especially your access is coming from outside of the region, outside of that availability zone. You certainly are not just paying the storage cost, you're paying the egress cost, the data transfer cost, and those things kind of add up. So this is a great strategy that customers love, that you could still adopt the cloud, but not have your data transfer cost go up that much, because really the access of the data outside of your cloud is very less.
Gotcha. So by knowing how often data is accessed, you can make a more intelligent decision on what you move and what you don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it's sort of, I just want to add another point, and which is fundamentally different from gateways, right? Because in the gateway, they have a local cache, and they're managing both hot and cold data and using the cloud as a store. And so there's a lot of egress costs going back and forth. This approach is just being smart about it and saying, look, we're 60% of your data haven't touched in 2 years. Why don't we just put it in the cloud, still have it such that you can access it? And as Mohit was mentioning, 16 files got access. So it's a very effective, efficient way to do it. And you're not creating another silo by creating a gateway and moving everything from your old NAS to your gateway.
Okay. That 27x, what was the test behind determining that it was 27 times faster to move data with your solution? What was that compared to? Because I remember the number being thrown out.
Yeah, it's compared to rsync, right? That's one of the tools that we have seen customers using, and it's based upon a benchmark data set for a semiconductor industry, right? So we have seen, we've worked with a lot of semiconductor industry, and they love using Komprise to do the data migration, and it's one of the very standard data set that we use to benchmark. And I think our report is really out there as well that does that comparison on our website.
Okay. Now, everything here is metadata driven, correct? So you're not actually looking at the contents of the data that you're cataloging.
That's right.
Do you support adding additional metadata flags and tags to the unstructured data so you can better track it? Or are you relying on it being tagged appropriately to begin with?
You can definitely tag the data you want. So you can build your queries, you can find, and within, let's say you have this cold email, within this, I'm going to close this. You can go ahead and you can apply tags. You can build your own custom tag. You can apply the tags to the data using the query. We have APIs to tag the data as they're getting generated, and customers are really doing that. And once you have tagged the data, then you can search based upon the tags. And these tags are really, again, no silos, right? They're not dependent upon the storage platform, right? Because AWS tags are AWS focused, then you have Azure tags, and then you might have storage platform you have on-prem might or might not support tags. This is really, again, doing it for the entire unstructured data that you have.
Okay, those tags, are those actually getting written to the destination data, or is that being stored in that virtual data lake that you're hosting? It's
stored in the virtual data lake. Yeah.
Okay, so that's not actually being written out to the file data wherever it's residing.
No.
Okay. Interesting. All right, thank you.
Great questions. So I'm going to jump through, just quickly show. I'm not going to activate the plan here. It just moves the data, but I just want to quickly show what it looks like once the data has been moved for the user, and how you can see it in AWS as well. And I just didn't have my VPN working, so I have the image snapshot for that I want to show. So this is really a Windows Explorer that a user is accessing their corporate marketing share, and it looks like a regular SMB share. They're going to their Isilon. In this case, it's an Isilon, could be NetApp, Windows File Server. They're going to that platform, and here they can see some of the files have this kind of shortcut icon, right? Is the kind of symlinks, again, very, very standard file system construct. And some of them are not, which are kind of hot. They've been accessed recently, and this has been accessed in 2017. So that's why they have this icon. Very transparent. They see the side to side. They don't have to go and look for the data that has been archived. They see right in the view of the data. And if they want to access, they just double click on it. They point their application to it, just like they have always done. It will transparently work. They have to do nothing new. No agents needs to be installed. No software needs to be installed. It just works seamlessly. And as Kumar mentioned, right, from the storage gateways, where storage gateways in the middle of your hot data and your data in the cloud. In this case, if you access this PDF, which has been modified in 2020 or worked in 2020, we are not in the picture at all, right? You're directly talking to your file server and accessing. Only when the data with this small icon, that's the one that's Komprise has acted on, you click, then Komprise comes in the picture. And what it appears on AWS, this has been moved to AWS in this case, it's just files, right? So that's very, and AWS loves us for that, right? Where we're not really moving data in some proprietary format. It's in the native format, right? You can have your AWS services point to this bucket to do whatever with it, right? It's a live working data. It's not a dead, you're not going to the cloud for the data to die there. You're really extracting value of your data even when it moves to the cloud, because we do everything in the native format without us in the picture at all. So you just, all these files that we saw on the Explorer, they're sitting in AWS in a bucket with the right prefix that the customers can get to, their applications can get to if needed as well. So just in a summary, what I really talked about is, two use cases: migration of the whole share to the cloud, how we can go to the file shares in the cloud, whether it's, in Azure or AWS, or we want to identify that and look at the insights of the data and really figure out where the data should really go, right? And where the cold data is, how I can move the data to even object stores, and really manage and leverage the object store as well as I'm working on my strategy for embracing cloud or embracing object stores going forward, while maintaining native access to the data, transparent access for the users and application in a very scalable manner.